Nobody was talking about housing. Nobody was solving the problem. It was a true need for the business community. And I've had people, including our city manager, say, "Why are you doing the housing stuff?" And then he realized nobody else was. And I think that's
And it
the role
matters
that
to
chambers,
business. Yeah.
and it matters to business. And I think that's the role
Yeah.
that chambers, you can be such a convener to any issue that's affecting your community if no one else is doing it. Be the champion, start the task force, create the conversation, create the data for the community, and then start to watch it kind of evolve, and then step out of the table and move on to the next issue. That's the
And
cool thing to me about chambers.
this is the Chamber Chat Podcast, the show dedicated to chamber professionals to spark ideas and to get actionable tips and strategies to better serve your members and community. Hello, Chamber Champions. Welcome to Chamber Chat Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Burton, and it's my goal here on the podcast to introduce you to people and ideas to better help you serve your chamber members and your community. Today's guest is a dynamic leader shaping the future of business and community development in Northwest Missouri. Natalie Hahn is the president and CEO of the St. Joseph Chamber of Commerce, where she champions economic growth, strategic partnerships, and a thriving business environment. With nearly 2 decades of experience at the Chamber, Natalie previously served as Senior Vice President of Membership and brings a strong background in business development and public relations, honed through roles with Woody Bibbins and Associates and Prior Resources, Inc. A proud graduate of Missouri Western State University, Natalie's influence extends far beyond her city. She's the treasurer of the Hawthorne Foundation, a commissioner on the Missouri Military Preparedness and Enhancement Commission, and a national representative in the Air Mobility Command Leadership Academy. She's also a 2024 recipient of the prestigious Women of Achievement Award from Lieutenant Governor Mike Keogh. From education to the arts and military readiness to economic innovation, Natalie is deeply woven into the fabric of her community, serving on numerous boards and leading countless initiatives that drive progress. She's a passionate advocate and connector and a true civic leader. Natalie, we're thrilled to have you with us today here on Chamber Chat Podcast. I'd love to give you a moment to say hello to all the Chamber champions who are out there listening and to share something interesting about yourself so we can all get to know you a little better.
Hi, guys. And wow, that was probably the best intro ever. Way to go, Brandon.
Here we go. Chat GPT.
So I am here in St. Joseph, Missouri. I have a 16-year-old son that just played in the district champions of his high school, 6A high school here. We played a Kansas City team last night. Unfortunately, we didn't win. So it's the end of our fall football season, but we have a couple years left because he was a sophomore this year. So he's I've spent a lot of my fall supporting his team and their football. So that's kind of been my life recently. But I am from mid-Missouri originally. I grew up on a farm. I have 4 brothers, and I absolutely love Chamber World, and I love what I do every day. It gives us passion to build a better community so that my son can have a better place to live for tomorrow. So that's a little bit about me.
That's right. That's what makes fall so great is football. I love it.
Yeah. The Boys of Fall. I love it. And we are the home of the Kansas City Chiefs training camp. So we're big Chiefs fans in this part of the country. And I know that's unpopular right now. I love it that we celebrate that you should be successful, but not too successful.
Yeah. Don't do
Because
it
we
over and
love,
over again. We want to see
right.
other
We
people
loved
win
you
too.
for a
Right.
minute. Now we hate you. Be successful, but not too successful.
That's
But we're
right.
still diehard Chiefs fans in this part of the country.
That's funny. Well, tell us a little bit about the St. Joseph Chamber, just to give us an idea of the size, staff, scope of work, your budget, just to kind of set the stage for our discussion today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been, as Brandon said, I've been at the chamber for 20 years in a little bit different role. The last 4 years, I've been the CEO. So prior to that, I kind of ran the whole membership side of the house. Now I have the opportunity to kind of dive more into economic development and really see this full scope of the chamber. So it's been a lot of fun. But our chamber has about 1,300 members. Our community is about 75,000, and we have a budget of 2 million. We do economic development and chamber. So we have a contract with the city and the county to do economic development. And we also have economic development partners that go into that budget. So we're combined budget for about 2 million. We have a staff of 11.
Good. That definitely helps to give us that context. Obviously, every has different size, different resources, different focus, even. But as we kind of hone our focus onto our topic for discussion today, which will be around workforce housing, that'll help to give us that background and kind of what those needs are in your community. So we will dive into that topic as soon as we get back from this quick break.
Hi, I'm Joe.
And I'm Rose.
And we're the founders of At My Community, a mobile app that can be customized to meet the unique needs of your Chamber of Commerce.
When we started At My Community, we envisioned a tool that would help communities thrive by simplifying communication and enhancing engagement. Chambers of Commerce face unique challenges, and we're here to help you tackle them.
At My Community helps the Evergreen Area Chamber of Commerce to create an app that keeps tourists informed even when their office is closed. They provide 24/7 access to local business information, which helps support the local economy and community engagement.
In Rocky Mountain House, we helped Rocky Chamber create an app with dynamic itineraries and digital resources for tourists, increasing local business engagement. The app has become an essential tool for the community, promoting events and boosting visibility for local merchants.
Today, we empower more than 200 chambers of commerce, campgrounds, and RV resorts to streamline communication, informing members about events, sharing business updates, and providing a digital hub for the community, all in one convenient app.
When you partner with At My Community, our team works closely with you to create an app that meets your chamber's unique needs. As your community grows, our app evolves with you. We are here to ensure you engage effectively with your members and streamline your operations.
Schedule a demo today at atmycommunity.com.
We can't wait to meet you.
Are you ready to take your organization's funding to the next level? Hi, I'm Clint Neesmith, CEO of Resource Development Group. As a Chamber of Commerce or Economic Development Organization leader, I know you understand the value of working with experts who understand your world. And that's exactly what RDG does best. For over 30 years, RDG has specialized in fundraising for EDOs and chambers. We bring cutting-edge strategies tailored to your organization, whether you're just starting out or gearing up for yet another new funding cycle. Importantly, our firm executives are hands-on from start to finish, from the feasibility study to the successful conclusion of your fundraising campaign, and our team brings deep industry roots and national expertise to every engagement. No matter the size of your community, RDG delivers data-driven, innovative revenue solutions, reinforcing ROI to investors and making sure your vision becomes reality. At RDG, we proudly build organizations that build communities. Visit us today at rdgfundraising.com and let us partner with you, building a stronger future for your organization and the community you are working to grow and develop.
Hey, Chamber execs. Are you juggling ribbon cuttings, grant deadlines, membership renewals, and a rogue newsletter that just won't format? That's where Econ DevOps comes in. We're a virtual assistant agency built exclusively for chambers and EDOs. From social media to CRM cleanup, event planning to inbox management, we handle the behind-the-scenes work so you can focus on impact. And here's the best part. We don't just assign a random virtual assistant. We match you with someone who fits your workflow, your communication style, even your level of type A. Visit econdevops.com or email us at hello@econdevops.com and finally cross hire help off your to-do list. Econ DevOps, helping community champions make a bigger impact.
All right, Natalie, we're back. So as I mentioned before the break, our topic that we're diving into today is about workforce housing. So I know this has become an issue, hot topic rather, throughout a lot of the country, trying to figure out how do we, and it depends on the community, right? Some are trying to figure out housing for employees who maybe live outside the community, who have a long commute that are coming in, that maybe the housing's not affordable. Different scenarios, that have the different need to look for workforce housing. So as you have the lens of the St. Joseph Chamber, tell us what needs are arising and how you guys are working to approach those needs.
So when I took over this role, the very first meeting I had was with one of our major employers, and it hadn't been a conversation or really a space that we'd really been involved in. And they said to me, "You have to figure out this workforce housing piece. We just can't find affordable, appropriate housing for our workers, and they're having to drive a significant amount of way to work." And so I started digging into that and really trying to better understand the need, because it was really, we were hearing it kind of across the country. This was about 4 years ago, but we weren't really hearing it in our community, and nobody was really digging in to try to solve it. So I did some surveys, started having some conversations, and kind of found that our members really were struggling with workforce housing. And it really was a major issue to them. And I think they really hadn't come to us because they weren't sure what role we could play in solving it. But we did a survey, and we recently did a labor basin study, and it showed that we are having labor issues, that we are significantly having challenges with people living here, and we had a population decline 0.4%. And the top three reasons, number two was affordable, appropriate housing. And so we thought, okay, this is a different world today for economic development. It used to be that you could kind of say, economic development, oh, we have great land, we have great incentives, they'll come here. It's no longer that way. Now we have to kind of think about, how do we solve the problems for that business? It's such a competitive market these days because of technology and incentives. You can really live and create your business anywhere. So for the really great companies that we have here, what are we doing so they continue to expand and grow here to solve the problems? So we kind of dug into this workforce housing initiative because nobody was really having the conversation. And we did a study. So we partnered with the city, and we did a study so that we could really make our decisions based in facts versus emotion. We intuitively knew what the challenges were, but it's always great to really know what the data is telling you so that you can do some solution driven problems around facts and data. And it really helps when you need to go out and get funding or get people to the table to be able to say, no, this really is the challenge, and here's where we are. So we found that we needed all housing, but we found that we really needed workforce housing, and I'll break that down. We needed housing for people that make $50,000 to $100,000. The average wage in our community is 57,000, and we're the seventh highest in the state. So if you made our average wage, you were really having a hard time finding appropriate, affordable housing. And we were getting, as we dug into this, we were hearing we had 30 teachers living on couches. We had, a lot of our young engineers that were, having to drive in from other areas, and they were having to spend a lot of time and money commuting, and they didn't want to do that. They want to live here, but they couldn't find any place to live. And so as we dug into that, we found that there are really, what the challenge was. I think, we had never got around the table and kind of thought about, oh, we have to cultivate an environment to solve the problem of what we need. We just assumed that developers and builders would provide the housing that we needed if there was a need. And that's not the case today. And that's why you're seeing it across the country. So we incentivize low income housing through the state with tax credit dollars. And I think that's probably similar across the country. So we have quite a bit of low income housing because there's incentives for developers to make money. And then we have high income housing because you can make money on a custom built home. But where in today's climate, where you can't make money is that moderate middle housing. So it's really hard if you're not incentivized with a tax to really be able to keep that rental rate low. So what we're finding is the rental rates are extremely unproportionate for those folks that make $50,000 to $100,000. And in that housing study, we saw that we are about 2,400 units of rental or home under the need that we have in our community for people that make that amount of money. So we had to really get creative and think differently about how to solve this problem. And so we kind of approached it like we would in economic development. So we give incentives for people that are expanding or bringing a job here. So why not give incentives for someone that's developing housing that we actually need? Now, this is not something our community has done. So this took us probably 2 years to really educate the municipalities and the partners to understand the role they play. Because again, they're just thinking, well, if there's a need, there's a demand, somebody will fill it. Not if they're not making money on it. It's still business, guys. So we had to just come at it a little differently. So we created a task force that was ran by the chamber, and we got everybody who touches housing at the table. So whether that's your housing authority, that's your Habitat for Humanities, your nonprofits, but also your for-profits, your builder, your bankers, your home mortgage loaners, your employers. I invited our major employers to the table to talk about what they need. The school district, because we have a huge need for teacher housing because teachers don't make a lot of money. So we brought everybody to the table and we started facilitating the conversation. So we started bringing in speakers and topics and kind of educating the players on what is happening and what's not happening and what other communities are doing. And by starting that conversation and really kind of championing the needs in the community, so educating the politicians of what we needed and educating the community of what we needed, then we were able to actually start. That's where we were able to start making real change. So we went out and we looked at a community that was doing some great work in this space. And we were able to kind of replicate some of the things that they were doing. So we wanted to go, how are you making this work? How are you doing this? They had, so for the state of Missouri, it might be a little different, but you could certainly do these things in your own communities. We were able to find the Abandoned Housing Act, and that was one of the tools that they were using. So we know that you have to be a nonprofit to do the Abandoned Housing Act. We have a lot in our community of blighted vacant properties that we could rehab and kind of get back on the tax rolls that we could have as affordable properties. So we started having conversations in our community. And from that, a group of 4 ladies that work at several of our major employers, CFO, HR, came together and started a nonprofit called the Housing Improvement Initiative. And they're at the task force with us. A couple of them are on my board of directors. And they started this nonprofit. And here's what's really cool about it. They have this nonprofit and they give first right of refusal to their employees to purchase these homes that they're rehabbing that they got off of the Abandoned Housing Act. So they put their employees through a boot camp. And so that boot camp, they kind of target generational renters. And so they're putting them through a boot camp where they can learn how to get their credit scores up. They can learn fiscal responsibility. They can learn how to be a good homeowner. And they give them a mentor in home ownership. And they put them through this boot camp. Once they've graduated the boot camp, then they become qualified to purchase one of the homes that they have. So this has come quickly. They put this whole program together and we now have 8 homes in their control. They're buying and more through auction as well as through the Abandoned Housing Act every day. And then they've come up with creative ways to rehab these homes. So they're working with our Youth Alliance on a trades program. So the students in our community get to go out and learn from tradesmen as they rehab these homes. So it's a great way of kind of learning and skilling up for trades, for future jobs, for high school and young adults that need a trade. That's been really great. And then we also partner with for-profits on that as well, where we can bring a rehabber in and they can, rehab the home and we can certainly get it back out to a person to live in quicker than we do through the Youth Alliance program. So we have a couple different ways that we do that. They sell the home then to somebody who has graduated from the program or somebody who's qualified that kind of meets the scope. It's a non-for-profit, so it's not a for-profit. Anything they make, they put back into purchasing another home or rehab, etc. And the reason this is important is because about 60% of our homes that are kind of in that affordable market of the range that are needed, they are really getting swept up by landlords. So the cash buyers, if you're a normal buyer, you're going to take that cash offer. You're not going to take the chance on that person that needs a VA loan, that veteran, because it's a harder process. So, but they will not sell to a cash offer. They will not sell to someone has a VA loan or has, a first-time home buyer. So their program is set up in a way where they're really trying to get this into the hands of the people who really need it. And they're targeting neighborhoods so that you can truly have change in that neighborhood. And they've targeted neighborhoods close to their manufacturing facilities. We are a large manufacturing town. So they've kind of targeted neighborhoods around their facilities so they can start to build community. That is one example of really something that has come from conversation about need, identifying need. The task force, the chair of my task force actually started that program. So we were really excited, but we certainly didn't stop there. We have done so much deeper. So it's one thing to start a task force and start the conversation, but you can also start to move the needle on real progress and change. So we dug a little deeper and we saw that one of the great tools that another community was using was a nuisance act. And we found out that St. Joseph didn't qualify at state legislation for the nuisance act, that only Kansas City and St. Louis did. So this last legislative session, we worked hand in hand with our legislators, and we got some legislation passed where St. Joseph got added to the Nuisance Act. And what's cool about the Nuisance Act is it now allows us the ability to go after commercial blighted buildings, vacant buildings versus just abandoned houses. So we've also started our own charitable trust that we are now we're working on a scoped area. So we've been working on our downtown. We have a lot of vacant buildings downtown that are owned by absentee, out of state homeowners, a lot of times for tax shelter. So, but then we have people where we're really trying to make strides and putting in a lot of investments and redeveloping certain areas of our downtown. So with the Nuisance Act, we're able to go after that owner that maybe isn't as progressively moving our downtown forward. And we're able to put some pressure on them to either rehab their building and make it not blighted, or we give them the option to gift it for the tax write-off to our charitable trust. We'll then turn around and sell it for $1 to a developer that will rehab it and really get it back on the tax rolls so that it becomes a thriving piece of our downtown, because we have these investors that are putting hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars into rehabbing these buildings into our downtown, only to have an investor that maybe has a vacant, blighted building that is really making it where people want to come commit crimes, catch it on fire. And then that really puts the whole progress that you're making in your downtown at risk. So we have really kind of put our money where our mouth is, per se, and we're really trying to dig in and kind of tackle some of these issues.
So, I mean, a chamber is perfectly positioned to be able to go after these difficult issues and find solutions and convene those parties to get the job done. I love the idea of the housing improvement initiative and the nonprofit that was built around that. So I had a question about that, but also with the Nuisance Act. So first with the housing improvement initiative. So as they rehab these homes and go to sell them, are they being listed close to market price, or are they keeping the prices lower to try to attract or try to make it work for those employees? Or how the pricing, I think, could become a difficult thing.
So they are pricing them affordable for the person who needs to purchase it. So we know that the market whole, so we have the whole in rental, but we also have the whole in kind of that first time home buyer. So we know in our market, 120,000 to 200,000, you can't find a home. And they're getting, if it is available, they're getting swept up by the cash buyer. So that is really where that first time home buyer, traditional home, is where the need is. So they're making it affordable. They are not flipping it and then putting in high rates, because they're not trying to make money on it. They want to get their employee into that home for a responsible, affordable amount in a safe neighborhood. And it's also transforming those neighborhoods, because you took that vacant home that obviously, a couple of them have had squatters in it, just because, so it takes that vacant home and makes it a home again. And then you put an excited homeowner in it versus a renter, which there's nothing wrong with renters, but we know that if you put the homeowner in, and they are just going to have more pride in it, they're just going to be more excited about it. And you
And
do
they've been
that
through a
with,
boot camp to know how to be a
and
great homeowner.
they're giving mentors. I mean, they have
That's right.
resources and people that are supporting them and cheering for them. And then when you put them in a neighborhood, you put 2 or 3 of them in a neighborhood, the pride becomes contagious. And that slowly starts to turn around your neighborhood. So no, they do not make money on those. If they happen to make money on the project, they just put it into the
It
next
goes back
project.
into
And
so
then think
those,
about the employee retention piece of that, Brandon.
yeah.
So if you care enough about your employee that you have rehabbed a home, put them through a boot camp, and help them achieve a dream that they've never been able to thought possible, how loyal are they going to be to your place?
Yeah,
Like, it's a
that's an
great
awesome point.
employee retention tool.
So is there any stipulation to those new homeowners, first-time homeowners? Do they need to stay in the home for so long? When they sell it, does it go first dibs to another employee? How does that
So
work?
they do put some clawbacks on it, and they don't limit it to employees. So the employees that go through the boot camp don't have to buy a home from them. They just get first right of refusal. And right now it's such a new program, that they're not churning out the houses as fast as the need. So it's kind of twofold. You're getting your employee trained and ready to go out to buy a home, and giving them the resources they need. And they have opened that up to the community. It doesn't just have to be their employees, but they have more people wanting to buy than they do houses, but they definitely try to make sure it's a great fit to whom they sell the house to. And they do have some clawbacks in there because they're doing a significant amount of work on this house and then selling it at a fair price. They're putting them they have a lawyer that they work with that's doing it pro bono, and they do put some things in there to have safety precautions so that the person doesn't just turn around and sell it for twice the amount of money, because that defeats the whole purpose. And it's really about building a better community and rehabbing homes. Our community has been here for about 175 years, and we traditionally haven't had a lot of strategy around housing. So what's created from that is we have blocks of neighborhoods that have abandoned housing and abandoned commercial properties. And so that's where we've really tried to dig in and kind of create some strategy. And the cool thing is the municipalities have come along. And so now they've been the biggest cheerleaders and the biggest champions now. And it's really created something special.
So with the Nuisance Act, what sort of threshold is there for these vacant buildings to be able to qualify for the Nuisance Act, or for you to be able to go after the
Yeah.
owners of the building?
So this is still brand new. So we're still writing the book on this chapter.
Okay.
We just got the legislation signed into law August 28th.
Okay.
So we've literally just created the charitable trust and the team that's going to kind of tackle this. So we'll have to do another podcast to let you know how that unfolds. We kind of have our first building identified, but we're certainly still writing this chapter. It was more of an example of there's so much that you can do to move the needle, and we've learned good and bad through all of these challenges, like the Abandoned Housing Act. I'm sure we'll learn the same lessons through the Nuisance Act. So the Abandoned Housing Act, we learned the lesson that the group that does this I'm just a cheerleader for them. I'm not a part of their organization. Most of them are on my board and they're on our task force. But they learned the lesson that when they purchased, they went through all of the process to get the home. It abandons all of the liens that you have in the state, but it doesn't forgive a federal lien. And they learned that lesson the hard way on their first home. And so you do learn lessons through these processes, but it's been a lot of fun, and it's really exciting. When we get to do the ribbon cutting on their first home, it was probably the first ribbon cutting I've cried at, because it's just, we're all we've identified this as a need in our community and we're tackling it together, business community and community. It's really cool.
It changes lives, and it can change lives for generations. So that's awesome. That is really cool.
Yeah, it's been really cool.
Yeah. So I love having these conversations about workforce housing, because every chamber who has these difficult issues in their community to try to attack and try to find solutions to, they all come up with different answers. And to be able to share some of these ideas on the podcast, the next chamber out there is going to, have an amalgamation of what a few different chambers did to be able to come to certain answers. So being able to put these ideas out there and help other chambers to really get their head wrapped around, what is possible, what a chamber can do, and rallying the troops in the community, so to speak, be that convener. And you guys are moving the needle on making a huge impact in St. Joseph. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. I always say that the chamber's role, every community, I always say you've seen one chamber, because the role of a chamber is to be what their community needs them to be. And we tend to step in and serve the role to kind of facilitate solving that problem, or being that convener, because chambers are so positioned to be a convener. So it doesn't mean that we'll always be the one leading the housing initiative or the task force. Once that problem starts to get some legs and really starts to head down a path that it's going to solve itself, then we'll move on to the next challenge. But we find ourselves in the spaces that nobody else is at. If somebody else is already solving the problem, that's awesome. But it was one of those things that nobody was talking about housing, nobody was solving the problem. It was a true need for the business community. And I've had people, including our city manager, say, why are you, he was branding, was like, why are you doing the housing stuff? And then he realized nobody else was. And I think that's
And it
the role
matters
that
to
chambers,
business. Yeah.
and it matters to business. And I think that's the role that chambers play. Like, you can be such a convener to any issue that's affecting your community if no one else is doing it. And you don't have to do it forever. Be the champion, start the task force, create the conversation, create the data for the community, and then start to watch it kind of evolve, and then step out of the table and move on to the next issue. That's the cool thing to me about chambers.
And see some of your board members spin up their own nonprofit to help solve the solution, right? Solve the
But isn't
answer.
that
Yeah.
amazing? I
It's
mean, and to
awesome.
me, when it's like, I just think that's so cool. I mean, that's what chamber boards should be doing. They shouldn't be worried about, really those day-to-day tasks about your event or micromanaging or what you are or not doing. They should be solving problems like this. I have 4 board members that have gone down and created a nonprofit to change our community and change the culture of their organizations, because that creates, just really lifelong champions for their organizations when you help somebody figure out how to buy a house and they never thought that was going to ever be part of their story. So to me, that's the role chambers should be doing, and that's what they should be using their board for, is how do you really make that radical change in your community, and you have those people at the table with your board. So inspire them to do bigger things, not just come to the ribbon cuttings. I need them at the ribbon cuttings, love them to be there. But when you have those thought leaders at the table, you can really, really make cool change happen.
There's bigger things to be done. Well, Natalie, as for listeners who are out there wanting to take their organization up to the next level, what kind of tip or action item might you share with them, whether it's related to this topic or something different altogether?
I would say that never get too overwhelmed. The chamber world can be very overwhelming. I would lie to you if I told you there were days that I was overwhelmed. I tell my staff all the time, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And so I think the cool thing about chambers is we can be the catalyst for change in our community. So if you're wanting to take your organization to the next level, kind of do that practice with either yourself, if you're a one-man chamber, or the team. Kind of find that space that your community really needs and your chamber really does well, and kind of put yourself through that exercise of how can we next level. And I'll give you just a simple example. It can even be just in the area of kind of how do we make a better membership experience, even running, if it's maybe it's your board if you're a one-man chamber, or maybe it's your staff if you have the ability to have staff. And you just take the example of kind of your onboarding or your new member process, and take it as simple as kind of running an exercise of your touch points and say, okay, what is this experience like for our member when they try to join the chamber? Can they do it online? Do they have to come in? How complicated are we making it for them? And kind of put yourself through that whole, even just new member experience, and kind of talk through the touch points, and even look at how can I and our team make these touch points easier. So if we're requiring them to bring a check into the chamber, okay, do we have an online option? Do we take a credit card over the phone? Or do we tell them, sorry, I can't take your credit card over the phone. You have to bring a check in. Take some time, even if it's just 10 minutes in a staff meeting, or 10 minutes of your day, to think through a process that your members, for the most part, touch every day, and how to make that easier for them. Little things like that can take your chamber to the next level. It doesn't have to be a huge, daunting, how do we solve workforce housing problem? It can simply be as easy as, how do we make our new member or our bill paying experience for our members as hospitable as possible? How do we make our members feel seen and appreciated, even if it's through the bill paying process? So it can be as simple as that. I think if we, in chamber world, we have to take time to slow down and make sure that we are making it a great experience for our members and our community, so everybody wants to be a part of it.
And I'll add to it that I think after going, slowing down, thinking through those processes, doing what you can to improve upon them, to invite somebody who doesn't really know anything about the chamber world to go through the process and see
Yeah.
what is the user experience for somebody who doesn't work at the chamber, who's not thinking about these things all the time, because that's where you're really going to see those gaps that you need to close.
And
So
I think that is the smallest thing that you can do that can have the biggest impact on your organization. If you say, I'm going to quarterly take something that we know touches 99% of our members, literally can be your dues renewal process. And we're going to slow that down and look at the touch points and talk about how we can make that a better experience for everybody. It can have huge change on your organization. Doesn't take a lot of time, and it's an easy thing to do.
absolutely. Well, Natalie, I like asking everyone I have on the show about the future. So, as we look to the future of chambers, how do you see the future of chambers and their purpose going forward?
Okay, so I don't know that I have the full answer to that. Obviously, ACCE has done some amazing stuff in their Horizon initiative that kind of outlines what chambers should be looking at for the future. I will tell you guys, like I am like I don't know. We're going to have to figure out from a chamber perspective, like us, how we're going to be utilizing AI. Because I think AI is going to be such a huge game changer for chambers as well as like just society in general. So I'll give you an example. So this is crazy to me. And I was thinking about this, like how this could truly affect the business community, because if it ends up affecting insurance, it's going to affect all of us. But we were doing our health benefits analysis, and maybe everybody knows this. This was new to me. I found out about this yesterday and I was blown away. So we were doing our renewals. So we bid out our renewals every year, and we were bidding out our renewals, and our guy brought our stuff in and he's like, okay, great news. We get to stay at this percentage point with your current provider. But I did go ahead and bid it out with other providers. And I bid it out with this new provider that's on the scene, but they do all of your analysis through AI, and the current providers don't. And he said, what I have to tell you, and they give you like a full scorecard. He's like, what I have to tell you is they didn't accept your team. Like they won't insure you guys. And I will tell you, it's because they take your credit card usage and they put it towards your health and wellness. So, for example, I throw a lot of parties for the chamber. I bought a lot of margaritas at the golf tournament. They think I'm an alcoholic. So I was like, oh, this is a problem. So they wouldn't insure us because they saw the medicines we pay for out of pocket. So it outed anybody on my team that's on Ozempic. It also it like I was like, I felt very seen and heard by AI that I'm like, okay, it thinks that we're not appropriate here because we're buying all this alcohol.
That's
But they
funny.
don't know. But the disconnect with AI is they didn't look to see, oh, it's a chamber. They
It
throw a
didn't
lot of
have the context.
parties.
Yeah.
They didn't have the context. And so that's just one example, though. If you think about how businesses are going to start to use AI, chambers are going to have to play a role in that, because that could revolutionize how the bidding processes for benefits come down in the future for insurance. And that could affect your small businesses. That could affect your chambers. I mean, they denied us. And luckily, our current plan doesn't look at my credit card spending. But I think it's a good example of the reality of that in all seriousness is I think that even if it's scary, we're all going to have to figure out the role that the chambers are going to play in AI and technology. And I think the ones that figure it out are going to be little more successful than the ones who don't.
And I've mentioned this comment, I feel like every episode, the last few episodes, but we need to make sure that chambers are transparent, that they use AI too, because your members are trying to figure out how to implement AI in their own business. And as a chamber, if they can look to you as a thought leader and you're using AI, and if you're trying to hide it, they don't see you as being relevant. They don't see you as recognizing what the real implementations are in the business environment.
Right. Not to mention that, it just makes your life so much easier. So if you're not using it and you're not really trying to be efficient with it, then I think you have to take a hard look, because we don't do minutes anymore for like board meetings. I mean, it has given us so much time back. So I think we have a responsibility then to teach our members how to do it and not be afraid of it. And, think creatively about tools like Pacer AI and how can we use Pacer AI for our small businesses that can't afford marketing research. I mean, I think we have a responsibility as business leaders for chambers to educate our businesses on how to use it, especially our small businesses that don't have time to figure out how to use AI. I
And
do think that's where the future is headed, and I think we have a responsibility.
and this is the opportunity for small businesses to really take advantage if they can be guided in the right direction to really make a
Absolutely.
difference for their business. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. So I love that insight. Thank you for that. Natalie, before we wrap up, I wanted to give you an opportunity to share any contact information for listeners who may want to reach out and connect or learn more about the approach you guys are taking there in St. Joseph. Where would you point them and how should they reach
Yeah.
out and connect with you?
You can find us at stjoseph.com. You have to spell that out, SAINT, joseph.com. And all of my contact information is on our website.
Perfect. We'll have that in our show notes to make it nice and easy to find. But
Awesome.
this has been a great conversation, Natalie. Thank you for spending time with us today on Chamber Chat Podcast and diving into some of these difficult problems that you guys are striving to solve and making some great headway with. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
If you are a chamber professional, be sure to subscribe to Chamber Chat Podcast on your favorite podcast app or now on YouTube, so you never miss a new episode. New episodes are released each week and delivered right to you. If you're finding value in the podcast, please take a moment to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. It really helps others discover the show. And most importantly, share Chamber Chat Podcast with your colleagues in the industry so we can continue to grow and strengthen the chamber community together.
This episode is brought to you by Riverside. If you've ever thought about starting a podcast for your chamber or your business, one of the biggest challenges is recording high-quality audio and video, especially when you and your guest aren't in the same room. Riverside is the platform I use to record every episode of the show. It gives you studio-quality audio and video right from your browser, automatically backs up your files, and even creates clips you can use on social media. It's designed to make podcasting simple and professional without the headaches. If you're ready to launch your podcast or upgrade your recordings, head over to chamberchatpodcast.com/riverside to get started today. Again, that's chamberchatpodcast.com/riverside, the same tool I trust to bring you these conversations every week.